I've decided to turn my mountain bike into an electric mountain bike. This is going to be video one of a series. So this first video is just going to be the parts that came in with the kit. The kit was $221 ordered off of Amazon. Let's go through what came out of the box. Obviously the important part, here's the new wheel, no tire, no tube. This is all as advertised. And I'll be switching it out for my components there. Controller comes in a nice pouch. It's got a spot for routing your wires and such. I'll have to wait till I actually do the install to decide which way to route the wires. I suspect I'm going to do something like this with the wires coming in here. I'm just worried about sharp corners and such, but we'll determine that when we get there. So controller, all the rest of the wires for the motor. Pedal assist sensor, instruction manual. We'll talk about that in a second. It's actually not the worst instruction manual when you order things from China. The real surprise to the kit for me was that it came with the cassette for the rear. I am going to see if I can use my existing one since I have a little bit different setup. But, you know, worst case, I use that one. Not a big deal. They show this on the advertisement, but it doesn't indicate that it actually comes with it. As a matter of fact, I believe there was a comment by somebody else that they were disappointed it did not come with it, but my kit, and I did not order anything special, did come with it, so that's great. This is going to be the mount for the LCD controller. Controller does come with a kind of basic use manual thing there. Nonsensy stuff here just to hide your wires, what have you. This is going to be the thumb throttle, basically, so this will attach the handlebar, and that is your thumb lever. Couple zip ties, what have you. Now here's where I may have to do something a little bit different. It does come with you know, your new handbrakes, and inside the handbrakes, see if I can demo this. If you can see that little pink part down inside of there, looks like a little dot. That is when you pull your brake lever, that will disengage the motor. It just helps protect the motor, keeps it running cooler, that sort of thing. That won't work directly for me, so I'm going to have to figure that out as we get there. I have hydraulic disc brakes, so I do intend to use my disc brakes on my existing wheel. So there, again, there's my disc brake. I'm going to claim that part from here, and I'll be placing that onto here. Now, I did ask the question that it's not advertised as such, at least it's not clear, but you can see the bolts here. This is where your disc brake would mount. So that's a left-hand mount. And in the instruction manual, it does talk about, if I can get down there to it where you can see it, item 2 talks about mounting your disc brake, and that it explains that that's what that is for. I visually saw that in the picture before I ordered the kit, so I just went ahead and took my chances and ordered it. They have an option for front wheel mounting. This is the rear wheel mounting kit, which again, perhaps the person who complained ordered the front wheel, which would not come with this, and maybe that's what they were upset about. They ordered the wrong part, possibly. Don't know. I ordered the rear wheel drive kit. It looks like it comes with everything except for the battery, and that's exactly what they say. So I'm going to start moving bits and pieces around. I'll start to load it up on the bike, and I'll make a series of videos as I go through. Hopefully it's entertaining and fun for somebody. Here's another video in the series of converting my mountain bike to an e-bike. I mentioned in the first video that it came with the cassette, so I just went ahead and used it. I honestly just didn't feel like figuring out how to get this one off of here. I believe looking at the dimensions, you know, width-wise here, I believe that it would have worked just fine. I don't see any reason why I couldn't have done it. But trying to get it to spin backwards and remove it just didn't seem like something I want to spend time on. I'm closing out the disc brake part here. I went ahead and transferred this off of the old wheel using the 6 bolts. Now this comes with a spacer in the place of where the disc brake goes. It is an option. You do not have to put the disc brake on. You can just use your regular old brakes, you know, that would clamp out here on the outside of the rim, whatever. But since I had the disc brakes on mine, I just decided that's how I want to do it. But again, it's real easy. You know, you take the 6 bolts out here, remove the spacer. You do have to be careful. You know, you don't want to damage this. So you have to kind of feed all the parts up and over, you know, through the wiring, out to the end of the wiring. Then I took the old one off, fed it back down. I've only got 1 bolt started. So I'm going to go ahead now, put the other 5 in, tighten them all down, and I'll be back. Okay, finished the rear disc brake. For me, it was a number 4 for these parts here. It, of course, was different on the old wheel, but that I'm sure will vary from one to one. For mine, it was more of the star. It was not the standard, you know, just like hex key style. But that was for the old bike. That part will vary depending upon what make and all that you have. But for the kit ordered online, it was a number 4. I just used my T-handle. Normal righty-tighty, lefty-loosey for the screws. They're not reverse or anything like that. So between that, the cassette is now on there. All I have to do is air up the tire, and I'll be able to put that onto the back of the bike. So that'll be first part. So another point that I wanted to bring out just while you're doing this, the typical things they don't tell you when you do it. This cap, you see it comes pre-installed like this. You want to just take a screwdriver and pop it off, because you want to be able to torque down the nut on both sides, and then you would just then take and, you know, thread the cap over the top of it. Yeah, it's just kind of funny that they don't tell you that. I suppose maybe you could take a pair of pliers over the outside and really squish it down to tighten it, but I don't see any need to do that. Okay, so that's fully installed. Make sure that's out of the way. Little caps back on the ends there. One side was a little easier to do than the other. So yeah, I mean, honestly, pedaling at the moment doesn't feel like it hardly has any drag on it. It's got a little bit because of the motor, but it's not bad. So I imagine if you're just kind of freewheeling or riding without using the electrics, I don't imagine it's going to be much worse. The wheel is definitely heavier, but all in all, not bad. Okay, putting the back wheel on the bike. Point I didn't mention before. I purchased this. This was not part of the kit. Was extra. It's like a torque bar. It kind of helps just kind of protect everything. But I'm not sure how much is necessary. I may or may not even install. I'm not sure. The kit itself, now that it's going on the bike here, you can see that it's keyed. So it's, let me get right down to the end. You can see it's square in one direction, so it only goes one way. And then it fits pretty nicely down in there. So not entirely sure if I want to use that part or not. It would help strengthen, so as the motor spins, right, it wants to spin everything, so this is locked in here on both sides, of course, and that's what keeps the axle from spinning. And then that, of course, then forces the tire itself to spin. So that looks pretty good. I don't know that I really need to use that other part to help. I'm wondering if that's designed for maybe a different type of bike. Certainly the kit did not say anything about needing it. Although in the instructions, it does say something about installing it if you purchased it. So I don't know. I'll decide. I'm going to throw the rest of the bolts on. I'm going to take a peek at that and see if I want to put it back on. Hardest part had nothing to do with the kit itself, but was just making sure that I aligned the disc back in between the pads for the hydraulic disc. That was the tricky part of that. Otherwise, it literally just dropped right into place. Yeah, I know chain's a little rusty. I haven't ridden in a while. We've had a lot of rain. You know, well, it seemed to be pretty easy so far. Okay, so now with the cables run, I'm actually making my first connections. I am putting it inside the bag, although I don't. You could just mount the controller itself directly, up on the frame, something like that, if you chose to. Whatever. I'm just going to go ahead and put it in the bag. The bag has, little Velcro wraps just to be able to secure it up on the frame. So I figure that's easy enough to do. At this point, I went ahead and made my first 4 connections. These are all from the motor, color coded. Very straightforward, very simple. Just plug them in one at a time, good to go. These will go to the battery. These will go to other things. The controller that goes up on the front. You're going to have your incoming brake lever controllers. That I talked earlier about the cutoff when you pull on the brake to make sure the motor is fully disengaged and all that. So yeah, we'll go through the rest of the wiring as we get there. They have a video online that shows it all, but nonetheless, we'll cover it as we get there. Okay, for mounting the LCD, here's the LCD that it came with. Mounting holes, it comes with the 2 screws for that. This is the mount. This will go onto the handlebar. These 2 holes, match up on here with those screws. There's a variety of pieces here that are designed for you to, because this is fixed, the opening here is a fixed size depending upon how big your handlebar is. Maybe you don't need any clips in there, any of these spacers, or maybe you need the spacers, right? One for each side. My handlebar's a little smaller, so I imagine that once I open this up, the spacers will... kind of hard to show here, but the spacers will need to go inside of there so that I can firmly mount it on the handlebar. You can kind of see looking down there with the 2 spacers. Obviously they won't sit that close together once installed, but that's kind of what it does, is it makes the this opening here smaller so that you can clamp onto your handlebar when you tighten up the screw that's down here where my thumb is. Okay, so we'll be back in a minute. First things first though, I'm going to use the provided screws, and I'm going to mount the LCD onto here, because I just feel like once I open this up and I put this on the handlebar, I just think it's better to already have that done. These screws here will be extremely accessible, whereas trying to get a screwdriver down here with the with the bar running across here, it's going to be very difficult to get a screwdriver down there. So I'm going to mount that to this to this mount, and then this I will mount to the handlebar, most likely using these adapters. All right, so phase 1 we showed you was putting the wheel, how to put all those bits and pieces together, install that on the bike, do the cables, put the pouch up on the top that has the controller, which we will have some additional wiring to do there once we get there. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install the LCD control panel that goes on it. So I had a phone mount and a few things, so I just cleared those off and out of the way. This is the mount that it comes with, so this will go basically like on here like this, and then the LCD will mount through, there's 2 screws up here, and that's how you mount that piece on there. But I'm going to go ahead and, now that it's cleared off, we're going to do that next, and I'll show you that when it's done. Okay, so that's the LCD display put onto the mount using the supplied screws. You can mount it either direction. I'm presuming that that is going to be up on the LCD, so I wanted this part hanging down on the handlebar, so that's why I mounted it this way. I'm assuming that's how it will go. If I find out that I've got that upside down, it makes no difference. You can see on here, if I can get the angle right, it's notched on either side, so doesn't matter. You can flip it 180, doesn't matter. Those screws were a bit tricky. Make sure you pull the wires down and away. They were kind of naturally curved up this way, so I just flipped them over this way. Made it a lot easier just to put those 2 screws in. So again, presuming that I need those spacers in there, that's what they look like installed. That one's only halfway installed, and the other one will just go in here like this. Kind of takes 2 hands to do it. I don't know if I can do this with one hand. Yeah, I'm gonna need 2 hands. Gonna need 2 hands to do that. Sorry. So, in either case, just with the screws out, you just lift this up. But that clip goes on the inside there. Then both sides will look like that. And then that will go onto the handlebar. Okay, so that's everything. Learning curve here. So when I had both spacers in, the part where the screw goes was split so far open like this, and there's no way the screw would go through. So taking one spacer out, now it gives me an opportunity to have it mount, and it looks like that's going to be nice and tight. So for me, one spacer on each part is all that I needed. Okay, so here's a sequence of events that I went through. I ended up stripping everything off the handlebars on both sides, as mentioned, in order for the thumb throttle to get installed. It has to slide over, so I took everything off, slid the thumb throttle on, threw my handbrake back on. Now, this is my original handbrake. I may have to replace this, as I showed in the very first video when we kind of did the somewhat of an unboxing. The new handbrakes that they send you have a disconnect for the motor. So this obviously does not have that, and that is for like a standard cable style, and where mine are hydraulic. So I believe I'm going to have to buy replacement ones, probably from them, with the that are hydraulic with that disconnect, or maybe they sell an aftermarket feature. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. I thought I did my due diligence before buying all the pieces, and okay, that was one oversight there. So thumb brake, handbrake, shifter, and then the grip. I put all these parts on loose, and then put the grip on. Now the grip's in the right spot, which is actually upside down. There we go. Now the grip's on in the right spot. Then you slide this up, tighten this on. Slid the handbrake up, got it in the right position for me, tightened it down, slid the thumb throttle to the right spot. I might twist it down just a little bit more, but that feels pretty easy to get to full throttle. But I might like to just have it more down here. I don't know, but for now it's there. Simple screw, twist it, tighten it to make that adjustment. But so that's how I kind of put everything into place. This, as I mentioned, is still there. It's a little loose, as you recall. I only put the one insert in. With two, it was just way too big. It wouldn't close at all. I'm going to put some foam in here because it still has a little bit of play to it that I'd like to take out, just so if I'm bouncing around, it doesn't move. From here, this is going to be a control for the display, probably moving through menus. This is your power button, up and down through menu selections, things of that sort. But you don't have to disassemble all of this, because this piece here, the clip opens wide enough to just clip it on. I went ahead and took all this stuff off just to kind of, clean it up. I had an extra piece down here that I wanted to take off that required to slide off. So even though it was not necessary for me to take all these parts off, I took them off, put this on, same thing, slid everything back on loose, fit the grip because the grip sets the end of the bar. Slid this up, tightened it, put the handbrake on, slid it up, tightened it in the right position. Then I slid this controller up, tightened it. I mean, this honestly can be anywhere in the mix. This is not something I expect you're going to probably monkey with while you're riding. This is something you'll use just to set all your controls. Once you're happy with how everything is set, probably only need to, press the power button to turn it on and off. Whereas the thumb control, this you're going to want to get set in the right spot, because you will be using this, I imagine, quite a bit. Cables, ran them all down here. I did put a cable tie on here just to help hold it. I did not I could have put another cable tie farther down here. I did not, because as you recall, when I previously installed the bag installs up under here, and when it wraps, it's going to hold all the cables in place. My feed for the bag is going to be coming this direction. So I've already got all the motor wires, as we described earlier. Now here I put the thumb throttle through and the control panel wire through. So that's these two that are not connected yet. The red and green is going to be the thumb throttle control. And the one with the multiple wiring here, this is going to be for the controller. So we'll just go ahead and plug those directly in. Nothing complicated about that. White one's going to go to the white one. The red and green is going to go to this one here. simple, straightforward. Each connection only goes one way. They're fairly color coded. You really can't mess this part up too bad. Okay, so just showing now here, the two cables are connected. You can see the yellow, red, everything lines up like it's supposed to. This was the thumb throttle, lines up to that clip. Like I said, all the clips are, you can't really screw them up. It's pretty self-explanatory. These two here are going to be for the handbrakes once I decide what I'm doing about that. And then the final clip here, in this particular instance is brown, yellow, so whatever wire. That's going to be for the pedal assist sensor, which we'll move on to next. So as I'm doing this, I found I took a couple of parts off just to help me. I want to run cables and make it all clean. But one thing that you have to do is you do have to take your whole grip, and all your assembly has to come off here in order to put the thumb control on, because it doesn't open. You have to physically, slide it down the tube here. If you find yourself struggling, to get your pieces off here, put your handlebar, straight in line with the rest of the frame, not crosswise, like you would normally in a riding position. If you put it here, that will give you a little bit extra length out of your cables. You might have to finagle your cables a bit, whatever, but that seemed to be all I needed to give me just enough to be able to get my parts on and off. So just a little tip. So I just kind of want to make a point of clarification. So I had talked a while back about the pedal assist sensor. Pedal assist sensor is not going to work on this. The nature of this particular bike I'm doing this installation on, the basic nature of the bike, this is a more expensive bike. It's got full suspension, some other things that actually, to be quite honest, complicate the install. But because of that, the crank size and everything here, that pedal assist sensor will not fit on this bike. The suspension arm's in the way, etc. It's really designed for, a Walmart special like this. No offense to Walmart, not trying to make any knocks there, but where that pedal assist sensor can go on here, and there's no suspension, there's nothing in the way. So that's what it's really designed for. Another thing I wanted to point out is I did go ahead and install the torque arm. As mentioned, I really don't think it's needed, and I've got a lot of miles on this bike now that I've got it all together. I need to trim this piece off here. It's just extra. Cut it here. No worries. But I just don't feel like this torque arm is needed. But whatever. I had it, so I just went ahead and installed it anyways. Locks in here, and then because this is so thin, they want you to install that extra torque arm that I think I showed you that earlier, and that would lock onto this bar here just to make this part of the assembly a little more rigid and more durable. But the first kit I made is meant to take a cheapy bike like this and turn it into an electric bike. There's many different ways you can do it. My first install, I probably should have started with a cheapy bike like this just for the fun of it. But I figured if I might as well do it, I might as well do it on something I enjoy riding. So that's where I'm using the bike here to do this on. So anyways, I finally decided what to do with the battery. So I bought a fairly large battery. In retrospect, I probably wouldn't buy one. This is a 20 amp hour. I think 10 is probably good enough now that I've got several miles on the bike. I'm making this video well after having done some of the original install pieces. I did buy this, I don't know, it's like a rack that goes under, mounts directly onto the seat post. That made it super easy to deal with a battery this size. As you recall, I talked about maybe mounting battery in here or something. There's just no way that was going to happen, not easily. And this bag works out to be in a pretty good spot. Otherwise, the install went great. So I went ahead, mounted the battery here, mounted this, ran the wires, and then maybe another video I'll explain, but I ran wires from the battery. Just ran them down, and they go right inside of the bag through that opening that we were showing before. I don't know if you can see that or not. Just slide them in, plug them in, super easy. The last thing I wanted to touch on, early on we talked about the disconnect parts that are inside the levers that come from the kit. that will, when you pull them in, they basically, as a safety, disconnect your motor. I did not install those. I have not. They do sell aftermarket ones you can put across the top. I've just never had any problems with it. I do have a lot of miles on the bike now. This works just fine. You know, normal. No cutoff for the motor. I haven't had any issues with that. Thumb throttle works fine. No pedal assist sensor, and I did install the torque lever. Those are the things that I believe I had not connected with you guys on in the last video.